Kevin Durant didn't want to go to Golden State. He wanted to stay in Phoenix. Should that matter as the trade deadline approaches for the Phoenix Suns? Should that matter when we get to this upcoming offseason? It was a report in The Athletic that talked about Steph Curry and a conversation that he had with Kevin Durant. And that conversation is what convinced him that KD didn't want to go back to Golden State, that the trade wasn't happening. And Kevin Durant doesn't have a no-trade clause. If the Suns want to move Kevin Durant, they are well within their right to move Kevin Durant. If they feel like they want to get off this ride and they want to reset, they have every right to do so before 1 o'clock today. And yet they didn't. They didn't go through with a deal that was reportedly on the table that could have seen Kevin Durant get moved and Jimmy Butler ending up in Phoenix. They could have, despite Kevin Durant not wanting to go to Golden State, making the move anyway. Getting back Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, some combination, maybe both, players, picks. They could have gone through with that. But they didn't. Kevin Durant didn't want to go to Golden State. And so they pulled back. Are we surprised that Kevin Durant didn't want to go back to Golden State? Won a couple championships there. Some finals MVPs, if I'm not mistaken. He was a good player in Golden State. Helped them tremendously. But Kevin Durant's pretty smart. Kevin Durant understands that if he was going to go to Golden State, it was going to empty out a lot of the assets that they would have had for the future. And that future would have involved him being there for a couple of years via an extension. And he probably didn't like what he saw as Steph Curry ages, as he ages. He'll turn 37 next year. He probably looked at that and said, you know what? I'm comfortable here. That situation for me is not better than this situation for me. The last time I went to Golden State, I wasn't treated the best by those in NBA Twitter land. I'm good. I'll pass on this again. Should we care, though, that he wants to finish his career here in Phoenix? Should we care that he's not looking elsewhere? Should we care that that's his position? And honestly, I don't think it should matter in the calculation of this team at all. This team needs to do what is best for the Phoenix Suns. It's why taking the phone calls like they did over the last 24 hours, like they might still be taking right now in the lead up to the deadline, which is now 1 hour and 8 minutes away. It's in their best interest to take those phone calls. It's in their best interest to see if they can find a deal that helps them for the future. You can't unring the bell, right? You can't unring it. Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Whatever phrase you want to use. The Phoenix Suns entertained or listened to the Golden State Warriors and their pitch to try to trade for Kevin Durant. And it, for brief pockets of time, not last night but the night before, looked like it might have gotten done. You can't undo that. There's no Command Z button for that. These are players. They have feelings. This is real life. Now, maybe Kevin Durant won't be bothered by all of this. He certainly shouldn't. It's a 500 basketball team that's supposed to be competing for a championship. They're barely holding on in a playoff race to be one of the 10 teams that gets in to the Western Conference playoff. They're barely doing that. They're barely in the mix right now. So he better not be upset that they're listening. He better not be upset that they might seriously be considering moving on. They wouldn't be doing their jobs very well if they weren't considering it at this point. When you look at where the team is at, it's just not a good basketball team. 500. And I don't even really care much about last night, but it's a 500 basketball team that hasn't been good all year. They had a nice 8-1 stretch to start the year, and that's about it, man. Even that stretch a couple of weeks ago where they It seemed like they were turning a corner. We told you, look at who they're playing. This isn't real. This isn't sustainable. Watch what happens when they play some of the best teams in the Western Conference or the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Look at how they've played. The last two big games that they have played against the top team in the East and the top team in the West. Look at how they played against Cleveland, and look at how they played last night against Oklahoma City. And I know they didn't have Kevin Durant, but look at the way that third quarter went. They're not on that level. So Kevin Durant wants to stay in Phoenix. That's great. If I'm Matt Ishbia, if I'm James Jones, if I'm the Suns front office, if I think keeping Kevin Durant is in the best interest of this team, then I'll do it. If I don't, I'm not going to be swayed because Kevin Durant wants to stay in Phoenix. I need to do what is right for this basketball team. And every single day that passes, every single game that gets played, every data point that we add to this puzzle, what does it tell you? It tells you this team is not winning a championship. This iteration of the Phoenix Suns, it ain't it. And we know the one trade chip that they have available to them, the one guy that they could move that would bring back some value, is Kevin Durant. So if things are awkward right now, during the break I was listening to a cut. Ramona Shelburne was on the NBA trade deadline special on ESPN and said that shoot around yesterday in Oklahoma City was awkward, was the word that she used. Everybody was on pins and needles. Because now you have to maybe try to chart a course forward with KD on this team. I don't care that it's awkward. You know what makes it not awkward? Not being a 500 basketball team. Playing to your expectations. Playing to the back of your basketball card. Playing to the level that we all thought this team should be able to play to. That's how you make sure it's not awkward on trade deadline day. But I don't blame the Phoenix Suns in the slightest for listening on Kevin Durant if Golden State was as aggressive as it certainly seemed like they were. And I do not blame them if they continue to field those calls between now and 1 p.m. And if by 1 p.m. today they end up making a trade, and I don't think that's in the cards. I think we're going to deal with this in the summer. But if they do pull the trigger and make a trade by 1 p.m. of Kevin Durant, they are well within their right. You want this to not be a conversation? Play better basketball. Beat Brooklyn at home. Beat Portland twice in Portland. Don't lose to a shorthanded Memphis team at home. Don't lose to Brooklyn. Don't lose to Charlotte. Don't lose to those teams. And then we don't have to have any of these conversations. Instead, we're talking about the players out there that they could potentially add. But you built a flawed team with a flawed roster, with flawed cap constraints, and now you are reaping all of what comes with that. And it's awkward situations like this. And so to me, no matter what, I think we are barreling down towards another summer of drama surrounding this team. And it is mainly going to be focused on, because I fully expect Kevin Durant to be here when 101 rolls around. We keep making this joke here on the show when the music plays to play me off, to tell me that I'm done for the day. I think Kevin Durant's still going to be a member of the Phoenix Suns when that happens.